Hey guys, I'm Evan and this is Magnolias and Sunlight, and today is day 13 of my series DIY or Die, where we make a Halloween inspired DIY project every day in the month of October. And I can't believe we are almost at 2 full weeks. Tomorrow will be day 14, so that's 2 weeks of projects, and that really truly kind of blows my mind. But today we're going to do something a little different, I guess, and we're going to make a Halloween tree. There are so many beautiful Halloween trees on Pinterest. I will throw up a couple here. Some people use like a black Christmas tree shape. Some people have found some beautiful like wrought iron trees that, oh my gosh, I want that one so bad. But today we're going to go the cheap route and make one using a stick from our backyard. So this is something that I used to do with my grandmother growing up. We would make an Easter tree, making all of these little tiny wood ornaments, and we would hang them on a stick that we picked up from the backyard, throw some of that really awful like Easter basket grass, the plasticky stringy stuff around the base, and it was something I looked forward to every year doing with her. So I decided to try and make one for Halloween. In addition, I've always been really inspired by these crows. I will put this person's information down below, the woman who made these, because they have been living in my head for years, to the point that I bought the crows and then I never actually like made the little party hats and stuff. So it had always been my intention to make those kind of exactly as they are on her blog, but oh, dog's hitting the camera. So it had always been my intention to make them that way, but I never got around to it. So then when we made our butterfly display, I started down kind of a rabbit hole with Victorian Halloween. So I don't really know like the history of it. I don't know how big Halloween really was in the Victorian era, but there's a lot of great images online that if you type in Victorian Halloween. And so I turned my 6 birds into characters from those images, and I kind of love them. So it's like all of them are at a Halloween party in a costume. And I'm going to show you how to make all of these miniatures, these little tiny clothes for tiny crows. It's how I spent my Saturday evening. And I'm glad I have friends, because if I told people that's what I did with my Saturday nights, I'd probably be a very lonely person. But it's set up right over here. I'm really excited to show you guys. So let's dive in with some tiny crow clothes. Here we go. Alright guys, if you've watched any of these videos, you will know I love to use up some scraps. So we have the ribbon from day 1, we have some old little buttons, lots of scrap felt down there. This is just a bunch of extra trims that I've gotten in different like grab bags from the thrift store, but it's too small to like sew a clothing project with. And then I went through my stash and found some flat back pearls and a bunch of just random really cute buttons. So I got a big estate box of buttons at an estate sale not that long ago. And these are all just like little random bits that I found digging through there. So we're going to use all of this to make our birds. Have you ever wanted to make a tiny top hat? Well, I'm going to show you how. You need 2 circles, one that is a little bit bigger than the other. And for my purposes, the bottom of my paint was the perfect circumference for this. And then you also need a rectangle. So I'm just cutting up from scrap felt all of the shapes that we need. And then you need a bead of glue along the long side of the rectangle, and then you're just going to roll the small circle up in that. Create kind of like a bucket shape, upside down bucket shape, and then put a bead of glue to close it up, and then glue that on top of your other larger circle. And then, because we have some fancy birds going to a party, I didn't want to just leave this plain, so I took some of the velvet ribbon from our day 1 project and made a little like hat band around the edge. This is literally just a bead of glue, roll your ribbon up, and then cut it to size. And then I wanted to fit everything to the bird. This is another offcut of some felt that I had laying around, but it was in the shape of a collar when you wrapped it up, so that was pretty cool. So we just made a tuxedo collar out of that and then glued the hat directly on to our bird's head, making sure that the seams are in the back so you don't see them. And then I took some of these tiny buttons from a craft upcycle store here in Virginia, and I put a little tuxedo button. And then I decided his body kind of looked like the rest of the tuxedo. So I finished that off with a few more buttons. And then we have a dapper little crow. And then no Halloween party is complete without a quintessential witch costume. So this is going to be our witch crow. We're taking a semicircle and folding it into a cone shape. And then we're going to glue that cone to a circle that's a little bit bigger than the one we made for our top hat. You can see all three of them laying there. These are not filmed in order, as you can obviously tell. And then I wanted to keep that festive look going, so I'm taking some of the tinsel ribbon that we had left over and just going to tie that around the brim of the hat. I thought it would be cute to have some like hanging off the back, like it's a ribbon tied on. I'm using a little toothpick here to push that down into the glue. Having those toothpicks was clutch for all these mini projects. And then I just tie a knot and I leave those tails there to have it come off the back of the hat. And then I kind of dry fit it on to make sure. I wanted it to fit more snug than the top hat, so I cut some slits in the bottom of the hat so that when I glue it on, the bird's head would go into the hat, and that seemed to work fairly well. So then just clean up your glue strings, and we can glue our little witch hat onto our bird. So then our witch needed some accessories. And I'm absolutely gutted because I made this little witch's broom and the footage of me making it is nowhere to be found. So you can see me painting it here. Basically, it's a cake pop stick that is from a leftover cake pop kit that I had. And then I took some packing paper and I cut a long strip and fringed the bottom and then just rolled that up around the cake pop. And then I put some of the matching tinsel around the top of that just to kind of finish it off, and we glue it on. And then we have our cute little witch for the party. So this is an instance where I made an accessory before I really knew what we were making for the character or the rest of the bird. But I found this piece of felt that had two perfect circles cut into it from my Cricut. So I wanted to make a masquerade mask. So I am just kind of piecing together some felt around those pieces to make the wings of the mask. And then I took some black glitter paint because I figured this mask needed to be a little glitzy, and I just kind of globbed some paint on top of it to make it look like it has a glitter finish or like it's covered in sequins or something, only in miniature form. And then I took a toothpick because I figured it would really fit the bird correctly where the holes were, so it's going to be a mask on a stick. And then I used that same copper paint that we used for the witch's broom, trying to keep all of these birds a little cohesive, and I just painted the toothpick with the same paint. So I decided that this bird with the mask needs a cape with a really big popped collar. So we're going to cut the collar out of felt and then just kind of fold it to give it that round shape we need. And I just dry fit everything to the birds before I glue it just to be safe. Then taking some velvet black fabric that we are going to use in a project coming up. Make sure that the cape is long enough by just dropping the bird on top of it basically and cutting a rectangle. And then I wanted to create kind of a pleated effect. So I am going to just put a bead of hot glue across the top of this. And then using my fingers, I very carefully ruche the fabric. It didn't work too well. It got stuck to me as much as it stuck to itself. But with the help of a toothpick and just holding it and trying not to let it burn my fingers, it finally worked. So I wanted to give this a little bedazzle. All the other ones had some sparkle, some fun. So we're taking some silver cord and outlining the collar. I just felt like all the black on the black bird, it was going to get lost a little bit, even though it stood up. But I figured that would be a good way to kind of make it pop even more because it's a popped collar, so it needs to pop. And at this point, I think I'm done. I'm just going to glue on the cape. I'm going to add the collar, and then we can add the mask, and all of our pieces are complete. And I put the mask on the beak of the bird first, and then I glued wherever the stick fell naturally onto its body. But at this point, I was like, it needs more. This isn't enough. And you can see the glue from where we put the collar down. So I'm adding a little bit more of the silver cord to cover up that glue line. And then again, using that toothpick to really push it down into the glue to save my fingers, which got burned multiple times during the making of this murder of crows. And then we just cut that off. But then it still wasn't done because it needed more. So I decided to add a line of pearls all the way across the top of this popped collar, and that was indeed the last thing it needed. I don't have like a finished version of this one to show you just yet, so you're going to have to wait for the main reveal, but this one's pretty cute. It turned out good, and it does look like someone who's like Phantom of the Opera masked ball, dark Bridgerton, whatever you want to call it. It needed some pearls. And it was about this point that I started to feel like I was losing my mind. But this clip shows that I don't have all of these things figured out. So I played with a lot of trim. I played with a lot of the buttons, trying to figure out what looked good. And for this bird, I finally landed on this scalloped trim. So I went ahead and glued that down. And then I really liked this like brooch, basically. So I put some glue onto the bird. And then because these are styrofoam with the buttons that have the loop on the back, you basically just push it into the styrofoam. Between the pressure and the hot glue, it basically melts directly in so that it's not uneven on your surface. And at this point, my husband walked in and called this a Ruth Bader Ginsburg bird, which is, not a bad thing, never a bad thing, but maybe not the vibe for this video. So I took a piece of gold rickrack and created a crown to make a Duchess bird. Or, I gave RBG the crown she's always deserved. And when you think you can't get any more unhinged, you find yourself measuring out a headband for a fake bird. So using some wire left over from our butterfly project, I made a celestial crown. So I covered the first headband piece in a strip of leftover felt, and then I attached a bunch of prongs to it that I had cut out from that same piece of wire, just in varying lengths. So I glued them on where it was like long, short, long, short, long, short. So they were varying lengths so that when we made the headband, they would look purposeful. This sounds insane. I understand that. But this is what we ended up with, so that you can see. I have seen many people make these for themselves. So I just made a tiny version. And then I glued a very small silver star button to the middlemost prong, so that it would obviously be celestial. It was the only button that I had that was this small. So for the rest of the prongs, I go in and use a bunch of leftover sequins and some gold beads. Kind of in combination. On every other one, we do a sequin and a bead, and then on the ones in between, we just do a gold bead. I found that it was a lot easier to put the glue on the prong and then put the bead on and then put the sequin onto the bead. So then it thought it looked messy, honestly, so I continued to cover it up with felt. I put another piece across the back to cover up all of the prongs and the glue that was showing there. And that was our headband that I made a tiny version for a tiny bird, and we just glued it directly onto her. And then, because that wasn't enough, she also got a gold necklace with a moon and a star. And lastly, as an ode to our original inspo, I wanted to make a collared bird, kind of like a jester bird. So I made a large circle, and then I cut a slit in it and cut the middle out to make a collar, and then I zigzagged all the way around that collar. And then I just put it onto our bird. I made sure that the pin side was facing down so you couldn't see it. I want to say that I measured this, and also that the zigzags were measured out so that they fit perfectly all the way around this bird's neck. But the truth is, I just got really, really lucky, and it was basically a perfect fit. And then I went ahead and added on this little, rattle thing. The picture in the intro that I showed you, someone was holding something like this. It's made out of a toothpick and a pumpkin button. And that's it. So I thought I was filming all of this, and apparently I wasn't. So all you missed was me hanging some Spanish moss because my stick on the brick was kind of getting lost, so I wanted to add some depth. Also, it just makes it look more decorative. And then on top of that, I just thrifted this bag of, technically they are like Christmas tree candle holders, and I thought they'd be pretty sprinkled throughout here. So this one's actually sadly broken, but there's a clip, and then you can adjust these tops so that your candles point straight up. So I will use some just like birthday candles that I have left over in my stash that I've also thrifted, or menorah candles, whatever the small candles are, and there's multiple ways to look them up, but I won't light them, obviously. We have a dead tree branch and moss. I was looking into getting some little battery operated ones, so that could be an option, but considering we're using mostly stuff that I already have, I don't know if I want to drop another $16 on some silly little battery operated candles. I'll think about it because maybe I'll reuse them for Christmas, but we'll see. So this is where we're at, and now I have a bag of these tiny pumpkins that I've had in my Halloween decor pile for a while. And I think as a last little thing, we need to hang some of these. We don't want it to be too much, so I'm gonna try and space them out where there's like dead spaces. But I'm currently trialing 2 different colors of paint on these because while the orange is cute, I'm just not really an orange person. And I really tried because I did this guy orange. So I feel like maybe we do need some orange to pull that through, but I have some bronze and some gold ones in the basement or in the garage that I am seeing if we like that. And I couldn't decide. So we have one of each plus the orange. I'm gonna do 2 of each on the tree and kind of mix it up. This was a bronze, like a metallic kind of spray paint. I think they call it bronze. I will link it down below. And then this is just a gold spray paint. My mom has a saying that literally anything can be made better with a can of gold spray paint. And I think in this instance, she's 100% correct. So that's our project today. Probably one of the silliest things I've done in a long time, but I have to admit making all these little miniature outfits was rather fun. So, quoting my favorite Wes Anderson quote, "What kind of bird are you?" Tell me in the comments which one of these 6 birds you are, which costume you would want to wear to a Halloween party. And I hope you guys got some fun inspiration from this project, and we will see you tomorrow for another one, day 14. Bye.